Indeed. All right. Unfortunately, that's what I wanted to hear. Okay, that's our cue. All right, here we are. Folks, friends, and fiends, welcome back to Kettle Whistle Radio. And we've got some new blood today. Kind of been pursuing this guy. His name is Case Vannon. Did I say that correctly?
That is correct. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it may not be easy to screw up, but I'm notorious at screwing up from the onset. It's just a thing, and they kind of look forward to it these days. They got the reason to make fun of it. Anyway, I want to say internet sensation, but who wants to hear that? Honestly, I found you as I find most of the musicians that come on to Kettle Whistle Radio, just perchance. That the first robot, okay, the video and the
Yeah.
song. It, first of all, stellar, but it's everything I like about music. And that's how immediately after that, I was like, I took a chance. I didn't listen to the rest of your stuff. It was that song, that video. And then I went to the rest. The,
Awesome.
it's about the natural progression. And that's what I look for in music. And if you get me, I guess it started as a young kid with Led Zeppelin. You know, I'm not going to compare or anything like that, but that build, everything I listen to has a build from Led Zeppelin to Jane's Addiction. But there's something to it, and you have it. And it's just this thing that naturally you're just sitting there with a mic, you get up, you walk, and then boom, the forest is your audience. I loved it. Not so much in that
Awesome.
in other ones, you have the forest as your audience, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess tell your story, man. Let's start with your name. Is it your name? Yeah,
Yeah.
want to give?
So my actual name is Case Shannon, and I have been in bands for about like 15 years. Out of Minneapolis was where I grew up, and kind of we had a tour booked pre-COVID. I had gotten a tour van ready, converted it, got everything ready to go, and then COVID hits. And so tour gets canceled. Band starts to it was already kind of starting to fizzle out. And that tour was kind of the thing that was keeping us together to get through. We had like the full continental US planned out. And as that kind of then was the death sentence, if you will, of the band, I still had a whole bunch of new material and I wanted to, get out and record it. And I had this brand new van to do it in, you know what I mean? And so I thought it'd be kind of fun to, instead of Shannon, Vannon, and make a like little play on that. So yeah, man. So just packed up that van and kind of started doing. I knew I wanted to do Texas at first, so would do some shots down there, and Austin kept calling my name, kind of thing.
Really?
So headed down there 3 or 4 times, found a recording studio that I liked, uh, packed everything up, headed down there, and set up for about 6.5 months down there. It was called the Music Lab. That was like the place where every band that comes in for South by,
Yeah.
that's where they would go to do the rehearsals
Yeah,
pre,
I went
so
to a
they,
few of those. I am familiar. Yeah, definitely.
yeah. And so, there was just a lot of history, I think, kind of baked into that building a little bit, which was pretty cool to begin with, because, like every band of who's who has started at South by, you know what I mean?
Oh, I
Um,
agree.
and
Yes.
so this place was like an institution, been there for like 35 years or so. So long story short, loved the spot, had a nice studio set up, had a lot of the songs drafted out. And then so I started kind of recording those and laying all that down. And then within like 6 months, and was just sleeping in the van outside of the studio space ultimately. Um, and then so did that for about 6 months, and then got a random email one day of, hey, by the way, we're closing our doors, so you have to be out within 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
And so like there's a whole bunch of regentrification going on in Austin right now, or has been for several years, where a lot of the tech companies want to go there. And so they start buying up all this property. So that's like kind of a bummer too, to witness and be down in Austin and kind of see it happening, where a lot of that culture is kind of getting pushed out.
Yes. I have friends
Unfortunately.
moved there that were musicians for that reason. They moved out recently, brokenhearted. As a matter of fact, one of
Yeah.
our house bands for this show for the first like 15, even now, we play Yard Panther every episode at the end, you hear Yard Panther. Yeah, these two girls, they moved down there, they played in many bands, and then everything you're saying happened. But yeah.
Yeah, cost of living just like shoots through the roof. A lot of that culture that you're kind of down there for to be next to a bunch of artists and kind of get that inspiration is kind of like slowly dwindling away because it's all money pushing all that art out. I mean, like you even saw it in Minneapolis a lot too, where it's just like you get these cool areas like Uptown, for example, had a whole bunch of that art community. All the rich people want to be by the artists, so then they start buying up properties. It pushes the artists out because they can't live there anymore with that, with rent, skyrocketing and all that kind of stuff. So long story short, that ended up having to find a new place to land. Had like 2 weeks, had all my gear, have my van, don't know what I'm gonna do. I have some friends that lived out in Scottsdale, Arizona, and so I hit them up. I was like, hey, if I came out there, I saw a couple studio spaces around the area. If I just like, could I, crash outside your place for a little bit while I try to set up? They're like, yeah, no worries. So found a studio space out here, packed up a U-Haul, put all of my gear in that, and sight unseen came to this studio that I'm currently in. Different room, so I've kind of upgraded here, but yeah, just gotta try to follow my gut instinct and hope for the best. And so came on out here. It worked out great. Got to crash outside of their place for a little bit while I got set up, and now I'm kind of doing the same thing where I'm finishing up now the second record. So put the first record out at the end of last year, putting the second one out now this year. And that's all 24 songs that I've written on this kind of first leg of this journey here.
Okay, I was wondering that.
So,
Yeah, I was going to ask you album dive wise where I was. You have two CDs
oh
available?
yeah, we're just starting. So again, being in bands for about the past 15 years, I wrote for all those bands and fronted those. And so have 3 records from the first band, 2 records from the second band, and now this is the second record is starting to come out now for this solo project.
So cool.
So it's still in its very infant stage right now.
That's what I like. I'm glad, I'm honored to be at that at ground level here, at the very beginning, ground zero. I felt that when I was watching it. I was wondering too, like how many people find you? Do you hook them with that video where you're just kind of like, you don't know what's going to happen? Like there's this guy sitting there. He's looking a little emotional. We're not sure. Is he going to have a breakdown? Oh, he picked up the microphone. He's walking with it. Where are we going? And it just becomes a symphony of rock. And again, the forest is your audience. Yeah, you have a studio there, but it seems like your studio is nature. Is that your thing?
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
for sure. That's just a big thing for me. I mean, that's where um, you know, partially the van was a way of kind of being able to be very footloose and fancy free and very mobile and agile where I wanted to land kind of thing. But the other definite half, I would say, of that van is all about, trying to get out in nature, seeing, all the beautiful places, in the US. Um, Not to mention, I just love traveling, period. But it's been really cool to kind of dive into a lot of these areas that I've never seen before, and the inspiration you get from that and the creativity that comes from it is pretty awesome. So,
Well, I would say 100%. I would like to give them a taste so they know what we're talking about. Can
for
we
sure.
start off with Robot and then we'll
Let's do
take
it.
it there? All right, kids. If you are listening on Spotify or iHeartRadio, you'll get to hear these tunes. Otherwise, the video, obviously, well, we'll give you a reason to go and take a look and listen to
There you go.
Spotify as well. But yeah, we're kind of a double-edged sword these days. But we'll get right back to you. And this is Robot. We're gonna play first. Is that your
Awesome.
mine? But
Hey, yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking about it, so might as well, right?
yeah, that was the dive for me. Okay, we'll get right back here with Case Vannon. All right, and we're with Case Vannon here, folks. Listening to Kettle Whistle Radio. Case Vannon, you just heard Robot. That was the one that made me fall in love with this guy's music. And I was just curious where else it would go from there. And again, like I always say, the best conversations happen off the air. I told him a little bit about myself and I write and artists don't quit your day jobs. Not too many of us can. Do you subsidize your own art with whatever you do elsewhere? Or, I mean, you said
Yeah.
you survived COVID. Not many people can say that financially as well. But
Yeah. No, I got lucky in a way that so um, my supplemental job that I have very much have like a love hate relationship with is waiting tables and bartending. So I kind of did that whole thing through college, and then for me it was just the flexibility of a job like that while trying to have the gig, every other Friday, Saturday night, and make sure that was off, and that you're making the kind of money you can make in the time frames that you're working. It is a nice gig to have. It just there's a lot of headaches that do come with it, kind of thing. Um, but it's kind of been just the easiest fallback. So that's what I was doing pre-COVID. Was able to utilize some of the unemployment assistance because obviously every restaurant shut down.
Mhm.
And that helped kind of in a way fund a little bit of like trying to, get situated with this new setup and everything. So that it was kind of a blessing in disguise, in a way. It was obviously a horrible time as well.
Right. No, I know
But
what you mean.
um,
You had time
yeah.
suddenly. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, and along with a lot of people, I feel like did find themselves in that situation too, where it's like, what's really important to me? What am I trying to really go after here? All that kind of stuff, and have kind of those more existential um, revelations in a way, kind of thing.
Mm.
So, long story short, that's what I was doing out here. So I got here, was able to utilize some of the savings from that and everything for about 6 months, and then it started to get close to pinching pennies. So found a brewery that was real close to the studio space here, and went in 2 or 3 times. Was like, hey, I've got some previous work experience. Can I grab a gig? And so I was doing that for the past year and a half while finishing up this record. So you're kind of doing double duty. And yeah,
They must have.
for me
Did they
too.
love that? Did they love having you there? They must have.
Oh yeah, well, it was kind of fun because they also one of their niches was having live music, right? So that I would just be in the corner every 2 or 3 nights that I wasn't serving tables and playing the music. So that was
It's
a
badass.
another like yeah, it was just a nice way also to kind of get my foot in the door a little bit of playing in the local scene out here a little bit too. So that was
Yeah.
um worked out really nicely, honestly, kind of a kismet kind of situation. And then was able to kind of save up enough that I'm now kind of doing another about 8 month stretch here where I can just really focus in on getting this record out, hopefully getting some ears on it, and really kind of promoting it along with trying to write for a third. So I kind of playing that game, just as you're saying, it doesn't pay the bills, but for me, I try to do a little
But it
yo-yo with
it can.
exactly.
Can.
It can
The way.
exactly. And so that's where you probably came across my stuff with Facebook and trying to do those ads a little bit
Yes.
and trying to find ways to kind of get people in the door here interested in the stuff, and hopefully giving a little bit of support because every little bit just goes a long way, and making this dream a little closer to reality,
That's the thing, like the evils of Facebook that people talk about. I found so many bands on Facebook like you, and I mean it's right there. Everything you need is right there. You get to see them, you hear them talk like yourself, see how they hold themselves, and the music. I mean, it's right there. You sure you can go to YouTube and go down a rabbit hole. That's great, but it's a little too scattered. I like the organization but I know the evils of Facebook and the politics. I hate it too. I hate the social. I don't get wrapped up in it. And I just talked about it on another show. Just the bipolar way we now we sit at the dinner table with our families, and not so much mine, but parts of factions of people are not talking to each other anymore. And
100%.
the polarization that comes with you. I use Twitter. I use Instagram. I don't know. I look at all of it now. I even started using X again. Even whatever. If it's about art, I don't look at politics. I just can't. I don't know where
Yeah.
you that, but who cares? So all right, I was going to get to the COVID thing, and I was wondering if you were, your everything was birthed from COVID. I was just thinking this too, with the restaurant thing. You probably did them a solid because you in your headspace, you were probably playing your music in your head while you're waiting on tables anyway.
Yeah.
You're coming up with
Basically.
that next, you're picking up plates and you're hitting that next riff in your head. Like you just
Yeah.
heard something in the background triggered it, and you're not there, you're here. And so you probably
Yeah.
solid like by being their house musician, I'll bet.
100%.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
the inspiration that comes from that, I mean, it's just any types of those jobs where you're having to, scrounge to get that next paycheck kind of thing, I think it does also kind of um, throw even more investment on the line of like, we got to, I got to do everything that I can to try to make the best art possible that to get it heard. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so I think it kind of gives you that little extra push of like really driving after it. Because, at the end of the day, you could kind of find that 9 to 5 fallback job. But for me, I just go, I kind of like being in the trenches a little bit and like, let's kind of the additional fire lit, I think is really helpful when it comes, at least for me with creative process.
Oh, what you said. I go back to Long Island days when I was bussing tables. Like people told me, oh, you want to be a writer? You should be a dishwasher for a while. You should bus table. You should be around people in a business setting, in a whatever it is, especially a dinner, a restaurant, a catering job. You meet more people that way. And in a restaurant, boy, do you have the drama. Holy crap! Depends on how big your staff is, but you learn personalities. You learn how to
Oh yeah,
learn how
man.
to do so much. It's great advice. It is. And you really, I did 4 years in one restaurant and then I did fast food after that during college. Yeah, you got to be in the trenches. What are you going to write about? You got to learn the blues to sing the blues.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
did you learn the blues? Did some of this stuff come from
Oh
real
yeah,
place?
dude, are you kidding me? Yes. I mean, I've been doing this,
I was begging the question there.
yeah, 14 years of, and that's a really good point too, of just like learning personalities. You know what I mean? You really do get to see these quite a collection and myriad of different types of personalities that you get of even fellow servers that you work alongside with, and the type of personalities that it comes that are, collected in that type of environment is just really interesting, and you get so many different walks of life. I mean, I just feel like with a lot of places or businesses you would go into, it's probably a pretty similar grouping of people, right? Versus it's just very interesting with the restaurant industry as a whole, where you get, every which way person, which honestly, in terms of an overlook of at least how I look at life, where it's like you want to kind of get every experience you can, right? To like try to build up a collective idea of like what you find important or interesting or worthwhile to continue on. So um that's definitely one facet. And then you've got all the people that you serve, right? And all your customers and that kind of, especially being behind the bar. And dude, the stories that you hear and the things that you come across and you go, I got a song right there.
Yes, you
Or you know what I mean?
do. If you
So
if you guys sat around and had a few after work, and you shared stories on your clientele, you got
oh
albums.
yeah. Oh, 100%.
But
100%.
people will
It's
tell
and
you.
so what I kind of like to do is play that kind of like so the thread of how do you blend some of your personal experiences with some of those stories and kind of find uh an overarching theme to drive off of for another song kind of thing. So
Literally driving off of. I mean, we're going to talk about this van, but in between jobs, a couple of years back, I was doing Uber and Lyft as part time. Boy, do you those taxi cab
oh
conversions? Oh, I I've been holding back on writing some of that down because I don't want to implicate some people.
yeah, well, I mean, as long as it's anonymous, right? They have no idea that most of them probably don't even remember they told you those stories.
Oh, I'd be lying if I told you I didn't write it down. But yeah, I think the ideal situation would be if we Ubered, I drive your van and you sit and write it all down what's happening behind us. And yeah, yeah, take me up on that someday when we're both have time and we're rich. Anyway,
Hey, there we go.
I was just kidding.
Hey, I love that manifestation right there.
Hold that in the back of your head because that's a mission that we should do. I think it'd be fun even if we wrote a 100-page novella with a music soundtrack. There's something.
Ooh,
I've done
that's
I've,
what's it.
I've actually done that. I made soundtracks to stories I wrote, which it helps you. Not necessarily everybody else wants to hear it.
Yeah.
Now I want to ask you. This is very important. Coming off of COVID, probably even more important. Did you find because this is something I contact people like you when at times where I'm down and out, and I'm not necessarily down and out now. Maybe I was when I looked you up, but like during COVID, I contacted Ty Oliver, who's a friend of mine now. He plays now. He's with the band Orgy. He was in Power Man 5000, and he
Oh
has
man, Dude, I grew up listening to Power Man 5000. I love those guys.
He's still they're still great. He's not with Power Man anymore, but I interviewed him when he was. He's with Orgy now, and we just saw them. They were
Okay.
amazing. They opened for, I'm sorry, they were the headlining, and a band called Cold opened up, who had other people that I've interviewed on the show, Lindsay Manfredi, the bass player. Anyway, I contacted Ty during COVID because I knew that he would cheer me up, even though like we both go to dark places. I just wondered where he was during COVID, and like, and when you come out of it, like right now I'm talking to you, when you come out of it, you notice like, all right, now I'm going to kick some ass. I have all this written down. I have an arsenal of stuff to put out there. You find that the people surrounding you are not in the same mindset. When you came out of it and you're ready to knock down the walls, drive that van, and go play, did you find that like maybe the people that you surround yourself with were not in the same headspace, or did you not?
Maybe I would say where I would go more with that is I was just as you're saying, I was ready to like break down the wall and just start playing this shit everywhere. You know what I mean? And that wasn't the environment that
Yeah.
post-COVID had created, right? Because everybody was still worried of our live shows a thing? Are, is
Yeah.
local community live shows a thing? And I think that's the biggest um worry or fear that I have at the moment of like trying to set up because now is going to be my second record out is how do you get a tour at the level that I'm starting at this infancy stage, right? Where you don't have the big name yet, you don't have the big draw for
Right.
these smaller cities. Is there much of a local scene still? Because that was the big thing, with previous bands and how we were able to book a full country tour with previous bands was you played the game of finding the local band that has a good following, hit them up, hey, could you headline the show? We'll jump on as support. And then, you come to Minneapolis, we got you. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
like, I just don't know. I feel like that's still in the rebuilding phase a little bit, where it's just like that local show where it's like, yeah, if Power Man 5000 comes to town, they've got their built-in audience. They're going to freaking, they'll have their audience there. But in terms of just that more local grassroots style, um, in terms of live shows, is that's, I think that's still kind of building itself back up a little bit. And so that's the only unfortunate thing from my end that I feel like of that post-COVID
Mhm.
is, one, the musical landscape is just constantly changing and evolving, right? So like right now it is pretty very much so heavy of that acoustic-y, bedroom style
Yeah.
playing, which I'm a huge fan of too. So I'm not disregarding that, but that's just kind of where and rock is a little bit on the, fringes again. And
Correct. Yeah.
so, um, I think trying to mesh those two right now is an interesting little
Very
place to be.
much. You're doing it. I look at like a guy like Beck, and before him, Bob Dylan. These guys were like street urchins that were heard, and found. Lone gunmen. Do you consider yourself like a lone gunman when you're out there, or you like looking
Uh,
for a band together?
Definitely, yeah, definitely right now.
Yeah,
That
nothing
was kind
wrong
of
with
the
that.
nice thing. Yeah, and it was one of those things when I first started songwriting, I was very okay with having it be singer-songwriter, just me kind of thing. But then as the writing developed a little bit with the first band, kind of right out of college, uh, I found somebody that was just an incredible guitar player and had a really good melodic sense. And so that was the set. And so we did about like 4.5 years with that. And so that was a really nice thing where you did have this kind of like band uh pack mentality going on, which was just a
Yeah.
really nice thing to be around. It just felt supportive, right? Where it's like you have the bad day,
Yes.
you got three guys going, no, dude, we got this. Like, no, our music's good. We, kind
Yeah.
of thing. And had that with the second band too. And then now it's just like when you're out here by yourself, and I'm sure you feel this way at times as a
Wow.
lone writer, where it's just like, you know, man, my stuff sucks. This is horrible. Nobody was going to listen. Blah blah blah. You just have those moments, right?
Yes.
And so it is a tough thing to kind of be that lone wolf style, but at the same time, it does allow you to kind of think, I think, find a lot of strength in that too, and just go, it is just me. So let's align it and get ourselves moving because we're the only one that's going to push ourselves up that hill. You know what I mean? And so it is,
Yes.
it's a blessing and curse potentially when you got the other group members where it's like you don't find that self-resilience and that self-strength of just like, no,
That's what,
let's
yeah, I
go.
was getting at that. Yeah, I totally understand. Because there are times like when I do conventions, I'm with, a troupe, Burning Bowl Publishing. There's a bunch of writers, actors, directors, and they make movies now too. Like it's great when we're all together, and with Kettle Radio, I've got various people that I work with. And then sometimes, yeah, you fall into that, like maybe I'm not that good, like nobody's interested right now. And that I think that's an artist thing. If you're not getting constant gratification, you feel like you're not working, you're not doing
Yeah.
something right. And a lot of people confuse that with ego. And I've been told by people close to me, like, dude, stop talking about your show. Like, if I do that, then nobody's going to. You have
100%.
to self promote. And a lot of people I've had on this show early on and still friends with people, you'd be surprised at some of the names will tell you that a lot of times your friends will not support you. They are busy with their lives, okay, or they're tired of your shit and they've moved on. Your real close friends will always be there for you. But and I find it in my case, people that I don't know have been more supportive than people I do know, because you're fresh to them. Nobody's fault, just you're fresh and new and a new discovery. Like finding a new love.
100%.
Like it's always exciting in the beginning for everybody, and then all right, you fall into your usual routines or whatever. But
Yeah.
do you find that too? I mean, is that
Well, I
what
think
I?
I think it I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's also, the culture, the demographic that, you know, I'm more skewing to right now as well, where it's just that, what have you done lately? You know what I mean? You put out a song and within a week it's like, okay, do you have something new? I mean, where's that next song? And you're
That's
like, bro, do you
interesting.
not realize how long that just took to
Yeah.
get to this place?
Well,
Is
yeah.
one and two.
I
Go
see
ahead.
you doing. I see you doing it. I see you doing it because you're like you're answering them, and
Yeah,
that's
a 100%. Well, because that's all you can do, right? It's like, okay, if this is the game you want me to play in order to feel relevant to you, I'll play it because I've got, I know I've got my arsenal of material there. You know what I mean?
that you do.
And for me, that's where I find confidence too. It's just like I know that I'm constantly going to be creating, so I will have that there. You know what I mean?
Yes, and I'm glad that's
Um,
good that they want more. That is always good for you.
a
You
hundred,
released
right?
something on Friday, 2 days ago, right?
Yeah.
Ending. What is it? Oh gosh, I'm such a
So
dummy.
that's
My end.
no, it's we're leaving it.
What is it?
We're leaving it just dropped
Oh, that's the.
uh
Sorry, okay,
Friday.
you cut out there, and
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's probably the weather at the moment. Of course, it took a twist. Yes, folks, friends, and fiends, we have bad weather outside as usual when recording. So okay, so that what is it? We're leaving it.
Yeah. And so that's the last single that I'm having for before the record comes out at the end of the year.
I was reading that. Yeah, like oh, here's one more before the album. What do you want to hit him with next? Because I do have another favorite, but I'm curious. I always like the artist to pick out what the next song would be.
Well, why don't we, since we just ended with the newest one, let's throw them we're leaving it. And
Okay. All right, folks.
we'll end with your pick.
If you're on Spotify, you can hear the songs, folks. So go listen to them. Of course, you could check him out. Real quick, you want to tell them where to find all your stuff outside of YouTube, or is there a better place you'd
Yeah,
rather?
so casevannon.com is kind of the easiest, Vannon. And I mean YouTube, Spotify, I mean if you just search it in Google, I think it's one of the first results that comes up anyway. So
Okay,
works out all right being a little bit of a different name anyways.
very good. We're gonna listen to this right now, and we'll get right back with Case Vannon. Recording. And we are back with Case Vannon. What was that tune about? I know that's your latest release.
Yeah, so we're leaving it. That one kind of came together. So most of the material I had kind of like written while being on the road before heading to Austin, for that first kind of like recording time frame. This one was one of the last ones that come to the overall writing session, and just started with a really cool synth organ patch that I had found, and started playing around with different chords, and all of a sudden it just was like that's it. And so kind of had that be the basis for it. And it was right at the time of I had just clearly packed everything up. I was in Austin at this brand new studio, and it's kind of like the catalyst to kind of get us to where we're kind of leaving everything behind.
Ah,
Um,
okay.
because I had just not to go too deep in it, but when I was back home, had the bartending gig, had a nice place, all that kind of stuff. But there were just moments where you'd come home at 3 in the morning after, tending bar, and you're just like, man, I don't want to be, the music for this band isn't really getting me anymore. I know I've got this nice place, but is this really where I want to be, what I want to be doing, all that kind of stuff. And so like that kind of aha moment,
Oh,
I think was like
you were like
the flood to me.
reevaluating yourself.
Yeah, I was reevaluating everything. And so like that story kind of like had popped in my head, you know, at that moment in Austin, Texas. And I'm like, what about a song of just kind of that, like those moments, we had just ended the last segment of like those moments of self-doubt, all that kind of stuff. And instead of it, bringing you down, having it be that moment of like, no, this is where we're going to make that change. Right. Because you're only going to be the one that does it. So,
So I see now like your area of equilibrium here with your tunes because I when I was listening, I found your music to be more positive, even if it was the song was a negative state. Like there's something still uplifting, like there's some hope there, even though you're overcoming. It seems like every song was overcoming something. Um, and on a
yeah.
comedic level, we're leaving it. I don't know what made me think of it, probably because I'm a big fan of Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when the dolphins just
Oh,
decide
okay.
they leave Earth. We're out of here.
Yeah.
We're moving on. That was the image I got
Yeah.
in my head. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But
For
yeah,
real.
but we're leaving it. So yeah, so that was about packing up and starting over.
Yeah.
Okay.
For
Okay.
sure.
Well, I got it. And what I didn't touch when we were off the air, I was going to tell you one of my favorite songs, which I'd like to go out with, was Same Blood.
Okay.
That one.
Red.
I love that. Start a War, I think that's another one of yours, which I really,
Yeah.
but Same Blood, the guitar and that is amazing.
Dude, that's so funny. That's how that song started, man. It was a guitar line. That guitar line had been with me for like 10 years, where it just like it just I don't know if I'm sure many other musicians, or as a writer, you probably have this where you have, a couple ideas that you had written down 10 years ago, and you have those nights where you know, a couple extra beers and you just start going, be exactly, you just start going back through all your notes, right? And
Post-its.
you're just like, yeah, 100%. And so there are those kind of moments where they just keep building up, they keep building up, and you just go, okay, why don't I like look back at some of these, right? And so that was one of those moments where I was, hanging out I think I was in the Ozarks or something, and it was nighttime. I had done my writing for the day, but I was like, I wonder, just like listening back through a couple of these old recordings, and came across that guitar line, and all I had was that intro guitar line. Um, and I was like, man, this is so good. This needs to be the starting of a song.
Oh, it's
And
bad.
so wrote the song completely based around that intro line, and then the chorus just like literally flowed that next morning. Woke up, had that cup of coffee, went back to that guitar line, and that chorus came out. I was like, man, this chorus is a banger. Okay, sweet. Let's like
Mhm.
put this together.
Wow.
And so yeah, man. But that one had sat with me for a really long time before it kind of got rediscovered, kind of the dust brushed off. And
Not real. Yeah, I gotta show you something else too. You talk about I'm Post-it man, but I'm gonna take you on a little tour here. I don't know if you can see that wall, that white board.
oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's
I'll,
me.
I'll I'll match your whiteboard.
That's me scattered. Ah, oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's me scattered, man, because that's like show material, things I forgot to do, things I need to do, things I actually already did, but I have to follow up on, it's just one of those situations. But yeah, I've been the king of Post-its for so long I can't even tell you. I still
Oh
find
yeah.
like 1987. But yeah, which is true. This notebook I'm writing on now for ideas is a book, literally a notebook from like the 80s. I was just sitting around with old ideas when I was a kid. I mean, a teenager. But yes, I know
And
exactly.
sometimes you find goal out of it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the crazy thing, because one cool thing that I kind of have found with it, and I'm sure you're probably this way too, is with even earlier songs, that let's say in one of the first bands, I'll listen back through some of the lyrics to a song, and it will mean such a different thing to me at this point in my life than when I knew what I was writing about when I wrote it. You know what I'm saying?
I do. I
And so it's just so interesting how, the beauty of art, right, is that it not only does it have a meaning in the moment, the meaning can continue to transcend and almost
leg.
develop with you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's just it is pretty neat to kind of go through. That's why I kind of like having those days where you just kind of go through old material. I
Mm.
mean, I literally talk about post-its. I got one right here and it says,
We
make a
could do
date,
this all day.
plan out a day to go through the old finds. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we could do
So
this all day, dude. I'm surrounded by that shit.
yeah. So that's like that is a big one for me is I like planning out those times to like kind of go back through that old stuff because I do feel like there's a lot of times that maybe in the moment it wasn't what drove enough of an inspiration to write the song, but now I hear it and I go, oh no, I now know like what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
On that, that's why I kind of wish my musicians were here, Heather or Jess. Um, do you, when you write this stuff, I would love to hear what some of it would sound like with a full band. Do you ever picture that? Is that the end game, or are you gonna?
oh yeah, I think the end goal it would when I would if I were to tour it, that's what it would be. What's cool about all these recordings that you've been hearing, and so these first two records,
Mhm.
um, there was a really cool service that started right around COVID. It was called Musiversal, and so what it did was it was like a monthly subscription, just like a Spotify, whatever. But your subscription is to professional musicians, and you got 10 sessions, 15 sessions a month to work with these professional musicians over Zoom, and it was a latency free plugin that you would throw on your tracks and they would record it all over the world. So dude, I've got the main drummer I'd found, Nate Barnes. He's a hell of a drummer. He was in Boulder the whole time while I'm in Mesa recording this live over Zoom.
Cool.
I'd give him like kind of sketch drum tracks of what I kind of was thinking. He'd literally like map it out and within 10 minutes be playing these amazing parts that I couldn't even conceptualize until he freaking put them down. The bassist was out of Brazil. There's some strings that have a guy that's in Spain that did some of the string arrangements. It's just it was incredible to get all of it being live musicians. So
Yeah.
that's what um, was nice. I think gives it that really kind of lively sound, but at the same time, I think there is something to be said too about having a bunch of guys in the room together
Mhm. Yes.
going through now that these songs have kind of been orchestrated out and go, how can we make them sound cooler? Because I think that was the most fun part about, at least for me in the bands, was one, getting them down and recorded, and then two, getting that live show ready to go. And it's like, how can we take these songs that we've kind of now we have a plan for every part. How do we make them cooler and more impactful live? You know?
Love it. I love it. I can't wait to hear it. I hope I get to see it
Yeah.
live. Yeah, that's
You and I
exciting.
both.
I
That's on the plan. That's on the docket for next year.
I hope,
So
man. I hope you come out east. I hope that's the plan. I know you got to stick to where you are, and you got to feel it out. I know
yeah.
that used to be you could feel it out with album sales. Now I don't know how you pick your
Yeah,
trajectory.
so well now it's kind of the same, but along with, you'll have the love hate, as most people do, love hate relationship with Facebook and Insta, but when you utilize those ads, and thank you so much, by the way, for sharing a couple of the ads where it's to get people to purchase a CD, or
Yeah,
right now I'm kind of doing a free shipping and handling offer where basically I'll send you the CD, just pay the $5 for the shipping kind of thing.
right,
And when I get that information from people that are willing to kind of do that, then I know that I've got a fan in that area, if you will, right? And
right,
so the more people that take advantage of that offer, the more I can kind of find areas that have some interest, right?
right.
So if I'm selling, 20, 30 CDs in Pittsburgh, that's a place I can go. You know what I mean? Because I know that there's a fan base there that, one, would come out to the shows, two, would be supportive,
Yes,
um, and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how you now try to piece together that, along with Spotify's getting really good about giving you the information of where people are listening. So
that's
if you can
cool.
find those
I
top
I
cities,
wondered about that. I use them. They've been
yeah.
good for me, but I get pissed at what they do to the artist as far as payment.
Oh
But they
yeah.
are
Well, it's
helping.
garbage. I mean,
I know it's absolute garbage, but they are helping you with where you should go.
They
Like,
give yeah. Well they give you data, so that is helpful. It's just still um to be a fraction of a cent per stream. I mean, the fact that you need 1 million monthly streams to have them kick out 4 grand to you. 1 million. Think of if you sold 1 million records, just 10 years ago, or 1 million CDs. Because that's what it was, right? That was the whole racket of right around that 2000s time, was get one good song on that record and sell 1 million of them.
yep.
Even though people just wanted to hear that one song, you still sold each one for 15 bucks.
I got some horror stories
So,
with that. A friend I grew up with, Brian DeVoe, who was in the band 9 Days. He grew up like a heavy metal guitarist, but he ended up in an alternative act. 9 Days have their hit, a story about a girl. Um,
oh,
yeah,
Brad. Okay.
yeah, and they have some great music. However, they hit right when Napster hit,
Ooh,
so that hit didn't pay like it should have.
please don't tell him this. I'm pretty sure that I downloaded that through like LimeWire, but
We've talked. We don't worry. Me and Brian have talked. We grew up old Def Leppard fans, Pyromania days, and where you bought your music. I still buy music. I bought your
yeah,
CD. I believe in
which thank you.
Absolutely. It doesn't, what they don't understand, he keeps things rolling. It doesn't mean you're bankrolling it. It means you're probably paying into your next album or just paying the shipping. But the
Yeah.
music gets out there, and another curse of doing what I do here, because I love doing this, finding independent artists and mixing it up with actual people that have broken. But someone that is breaking right now, and I'd love for you two to get someone I had on here, Ayatoya. She's Polish. She's living here. Actually, I think she's in Chicago right now. But she is an industrial artist, but she does everything herself. And I watched her do it live on stage. Man, you two as a double bill would be amazing. Look her up. Look up Ayatoya. And we
How
did
do you
an
spell that?
it's 3 words, which means I do it by myself. I and then YA and then Toya, Toya. You could listen to her about
Okay.
three episodes back. She's lovely. And I saw her opening for my friend Ty Oliver, opening for Orgy at Jurgles here in Pittsburgh. And it was one of those moments, defining moment. She's on the stage, and my wife just kind of said, "You need to get her on your show." I was like, "Okay." And she was lovely when I met her. A do-it-yourself artist, and I would love to see what she'd do with a full band, but she proved she didn't have to. That's
Yeah.
somebody I like if worlds could collide here, you and her should tour together, but you got
Would
your
be
own thing.
awesome.
Get it. So let's talk about, okay, you have a mascot. His name is Vannon.
Yes. So my mom, it was just a funny coincidence. My mom loves projects, and so one of her things is volunteering at a Helping Paws is the organization, basically mobily handicapped or veteran with PTSD. They train dogs to be service dogs,
I love it.
right? And so she did that about like 8 years ago was the first time she trained a dog for 2.5 years. It broke her heart to give it away, although she obviously knew it was for a good cause. It still broke her heart. So the further she continued to work with the organization, basically you can potentially train a dog that if they have a litter of puppies, you can then keep that dog,
Oh, wow.
right? So
Okay.
that's kind of their thing. And so she trained it to be a Helping Paws dog. It ended up having a couple litters, so then she was able to keep that dog. And
Hmm.
so this puppy Vannon was one of the puppies
Oh, nice.
from that litter, and she's training him now. And so they every year that they have a different litter, the letter has to start. Each name has to start with a different letter. V was up this year, so we named him Bannon, and so that is now the mascot
Oh, it
for
all fell into
Case Bannon
place.
because he is yeah, because he's
Oh,
he is such an amazing dog. He's like head of his class right now, which is awesome, and is going to go on to really be a companion to somebody that's in true need of one. So it's just all pretty cool.
that's well. Now let's talk about this other part. The other character, the silent one, the van itself. I
Yes.
I drove for a living, and I've driven. I drive to the East Coast quite a bit. It's a good 8 hour trip. I have family up in Connecticut and Jersey and Long Island, so yeah, lots of driving in my world. Now, that seems like, does that dominate your time? How often do you take off to a new destination?
Yeah, so right now I am kind of a little bit situated here,
Okay.
and have that set up nicely. I am just coming off of, though, I did about 2 months completely on the road. I've got friends that live in Boulder, Colorado, so went and visited them. Went up to friends in Montana. I'm a big runner. Did a marathon up there with him in Missoula, which was super awesome. First time up in Canada. Got to do Canada for about 2 weeks. Um, Absolutely beautiful up there.
Yeah.
Um, did
Nice
Banff and
people. Very nice people.
oh yeah, 100%. Well, I'm from Minnesota, so we get kind of similar
I get it.
similar styles. And so I got to do a bunch of that traveling. So that was about like 2 months on the road, and that was incredible. I mean, that's honestly where I don't know if you ever felt this way, but like for me, driving is just a really relaxing thing where you can really kind of check out and the amount of song ideas I got while on the road, the amount of ideas for just kind of like overall writing or just conceptually of just like more existential ideas come on the road, especially if you throw on certain books. I was, for me, I'm right in that zone of I was about to release the second record now, and so listen to I don't know if you've ever listened to Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Convey or something.
I have not.
That was a good one. It's just like it was one of those where you've got nothing but the open road and nothing to think about except for a bunch of really good ideas of how to be as productive as possible, how to like kind of restructure the way you kind of view um, what we're all doing out here. So it was a lot of good time for reflection, and I just love it, man.
The road, yeah, the road is very inspirational. It's totally inspirational. I sometimes, you have nothing else but your head with you, meaning you're driving, and I get all these ideas. I got to pull over and write this down. Got to write it down. Jesus Christ, I got to
Oh
write
yeah.
that down. Or luckily, my wife is with me on some of these journeys. Remember this. Can you just make a note? Text that to me right now. I need to use that later. But most times, I find my car is where I discover music these days, because I don't go on the internet and troll for music. I really don't. I
Yeah.
found you, like I said, it was just one of those moments. Like, occasionally I'll go on Facebook, and something will hit me, and I get a lot of stuff sent to me, but I like the ones that just hit me, and sometimes it's a band on, when we're going somewhere, and like you stop and you see a billboard. That's an interesting name. Sometimes it doesn't pan out. But yeah, I like discovering things like that. But the road is great for thinking and sorting, your
Yeah.
ideas. Sure, you do that. Do you ever pull over? I'm sure you just pull over and start playing.
Well, yeah, a little bit of that. I've got, voice memos is a hell of a thing. Um, Dictation now is a heck of a thing. Um, and
Yeah, for you,
so
it's like,
so that's all pretty lucky. But also, yeah, the road for me too was just one of those things. I I always knew that I wanted to do music, or that I was at least it was one of my passions, right? But I think the first couple times being on the road with the band for those first couple times, that was just kind of that aha moment where it's like if I could do this every day and on to the next city and then get those moments of clarity and deep thought, and then you're setting up for the next show and you're doing, and like, dude, right there, that was just kind of that, like, I want this to be every day of my life, if I can.
yeah,
And
I
so
think
that
you
was kind
can.
of the other solidifying factor of like, because it is just such a big part of being a musician is
Mhm.
being on that road. And like it was just that's where I was just like, this
Yeah.
is the dream. This is
Yeah,
exactly what I
you
want to
want
be doing.
new faces, you want new blood, you want new ears to hear what you're putting out there, and you feed off of that energy. You need that energy. Have you, this is probably a stupid question in your case, or maybe not, maybe it hasn't happened yet. Have you pulled up at a place and drew a crowd? Has that
Not, no, I have not tried that yet. I think
happened?
that's definitely, I think, um, it's still in its beginning phases of trying to figure out this live thing. So I think that's where, obviously I'm able to do song organization for each video that I try to shoot. So then I have to work hard at trying to the production of that and how all that's going to work. I haven't, and that's part of the goal of the tail end of this year, along with the promotion of the record, is let's get this thing live ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And have it be, I want 10 of the best performing songs, the 10 most resonating songs. Let's get those in a bunch and let's plan out how I'm gonna go in between each of them. You know what I mean? Just as
Totally.
you're talking with that Ayatoya,
I told
I mean,
you.
there's a lot of work that goes into
Oh,
prepping all of that. You know what I mean?
technology.
Before exactly, it's
Uh,
just crazy.
yes. And no matter what people tell you, and I know this because I've writing a song is not easy. It's not easy, and for it to work, sure, you can write it and you think it sounds good to you, but it may not sound good to everybody else. And people have heard stuff on my show not knowing that I did it. Sometimes they like it, and sometimes they just don't acknowledge it. But you test it, and
Yeah.
it's hard to write. For you, it seems you make it look easy. You really do. I know maybe you've heard that before.
Well,
I
that's very nice of you, but
I totally see you prevailing in like, and this is high reaching right now, like a Lollapalooza situation back in the day was easier for you. Now it's just one festival in Chicago, but like a situation like that, I see you prevailing like in a second stage situation because that's where you get to feed off a crowd closer. And it seems
yeah.
like that's where you would get your following immediately. You deserve to be on a main stage, but I see you prevailing like in a festival situation, building that audience. I don't know if that's something you
Thank
would
you.
look into.
No, 100%. I mean, that is a big goal. I mean, uh, uh, I was lucky enough to do a Coachella, back in '06 when
So you did.
it was still cool and you're finding people. So it's like, finding Band of Skulls was playing that
Oh,
year
I love that
and
band. I
like
haven't heard them.
yeah, dude. Yeah, they were like literally, and they were a side stage act, dude. And you're like, what is this? Is so like I had heard a couple of the songs, like Diamonds and Pearls or something, maybe beforehand, and then you watch it and you're like, oh my God, just blown away.
Oh,
And so
good.
like bands like that, and like Florence was on a side stage at that point, Florence the Machine, and you're like, how is this a side stage material? But that's you know I'm very okay with having that be the starting point, where it's like that was so cool about so many of those acts. And I think what made them so much bigger in the long run is that they were able to grab that side stage energy
Yep.
and presence, and people were able to acknowledge it.
Yep.
And that's where it truly can shine, whether you got it or not. You know what I mean?
Become a buzzword.
So, I mean, that would be amazing dreams.
You're the buzzword at that festival. Like, you should see this guy
Exactly.
playing right now, or like,
Yeah.
seriously. What do you do? Like a 45-minute set on something like that?
Yeah.
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 And it's got to be hot as hell. um,
Hey, I'm down here. I'm down here at 110 right now. I'm just getting my practice in, you know?
Oh my God, man. Well, I guess you should tell folks what's next for you. What is next? You got two
Yeah.
albums, CD coming
So
out.
ultimately, I mean, yeah, the biggest thing right now is I'm gonna start putting out a pre-release uh for this upcoming record. So the record's gonna drop December 15th, I want to say. I should have had that prepared. But yeah, so the Friday, I think it's like the second Friday in December.
You want us to start or you want to
Sorry,
start?
hold on one second.
Please.
Okay.
That's nothing
So
here. Don't worry about it.
but yeah, so ultimately, that the record is going to be dropping. I'm kind of going to do some pre-sale, some deals, some cool stuff where I take a lot of, I love film photography, take a lot of film on the road. I put together 4 different photographs that I developed, and so hand signing those would come with the pre-sale. Have some other kind of fun little freebies that come with. So that's a big thing, trying to get that record out there and hopefully get ears on it. Because I'm really proud of it. This is kind of the culmination of all of these songs that I've worked for over the
I
past
can't
two
imagine.
years.
They're all bangers,
Uh,
man.
yeah, I appreciate it, and let's hope people catch on. I think that's just the biggest thing right now. I think the biggest frustration can arise of just like nobody's listening. So like I think that's the biggest for me, and trying to yeah, so try to get that record out there, and then hopefully you'll start seeing some shows sprouting out mid next year. I think is the ultimate goal.
I hope
So
to see you here. I think it would be awesome. Um, That's the other thing too. It sounds like you got a good body of work. Like what I found is like after you put that first one out, they want a second one right away. That's
Yeah.
that's the old producing days. I don't know if that's how it is now. In this case, it would be you.
I think for me, I had this collection ready to go, and so it was always in my head that it was going to be one after another. I think it would be really cool too. Like I've kind of a dream boat thing, if I can garner enough interest, would be doing a dual vinyl package
There you go.
where you've got part, because this one's going to be called Van Life Part 2, so it's going to be, you know, part 1, part 2 in a package together. I think would be pretty darn neat.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I'm doing back to back, you know, for these two. I do getting all this material out has kind of like jones me to maybe try to stay at a pace like this. So I think another big goal for me over the next 3 or 4 months is to kind of write for a third record that I could get in the bag potentially for the end of next year. So
Hustle while you hustle while you can, so you don't have to hustle later on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Definitely, definitely. I watched something which could actually be discouraging to musicians, but not in your case, because what you're doing it the right way, and the sound is incredible. I don't see this; it seems timeless. But I just watched this thing on the fall of the '80s glam metal days, and it's a 3-part series. I think it's on Peacock, and boy,
Okay.
when the situation changes, how all those bands lost their contracts, lost everything, even mid-production, they canceled albums, and I don't agree with how it went down. But you don't have to worry about such things because
Yeah, I mean that is the nice thing right now. I mean, even in this day and age right now, because I do have some coaching with a couple side people, and a big thing is remain independent as long as possible. And there are so many people nowadays that are able to make quite a nice living. I mean, just as the dream we were talking about earlier with your writing being, you know, the thing that is making you the money for this, for music, there is a big potential now. If you can get enough of a fan ship that you can do this all independently. You know what I mean? And you know, I even had a moment of clarity like this last night. At the end of the day, I just, you know, had a really productive work day on all this kind of stuff, and I'm just going, man, if this was, you know, if this was the setup, I'd be okay with it. I don't need the Mega Man. You know, it was just such a dream when you're young. You know, when I was growing up, where, you know, you get the mega mansion and you get the blah 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 of the rock star style lifestyle. And it's like, man, if I could just, you know, have this situation be getting bankrolled, you know, at the minimal level of, you know, but I was able to keep independent and be in charge of all of it, I would be very okay with that. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely, I agree with you completely.
So
Uh,
and I think it's very possible in this era, which is really nice.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. It is very possible. Again, I'm older now, but more possibilities have opened up in my older age, with
Yeah.
technology. I always wanted. The reason I started this thing was my hatred of terrestrial radio, where it was going. Nobody independent ever got airplay for anything they ever did, and there was so much better music in the garage outside of the clubs. And
Yeah.
I just keep it there. I don't know. And I love it when I see a garage band make it. It's just something I'm not calling you that because you're a wilderness guy. You're out there in, oh my God, where's your favorite place to play? Like, just like
Oh man, I it completely depends. I think time of year. So like I love the desert, dude. I've got like this like romanticism with the beauty and death of the desert, you know, tied into one.
Prop for that. Hold on. Keep going.
Yeah. And so if it's not, you know, 110 degrees, it is so fun to be out there, you know, because you just get really nice winters out here where it's like 80 tops and the sun's out. You got the beautiful cactus, the beautiful backdrop. So that's one of my favorites. I do love the woods is another great one. So I've had videos at both of those spots. The robot one you were talking about was actually kind of cool, where it's like a abandoned old motel that we had come across, and we are like, dude, we have to shoot here.
You
know,
found a
so
movie set there that nobody's found. You probably should have been quiet.
exactly. No, dude. I mean, people try to shoot it and stuff. And so we called up, we had to go on there, you know, as soon as we get on site, some, you know, ragged dude comes out of one of the buildings is like, hey, you're not supposed to be here, blah blah blah. And we have to like find out who the owner is, call the owner of the property, be like, we're just trying to shoot a music video here, you know, can you give us an hour and a half? He lets us do it. I mean, that was a pretty funny story to try to get that done and figured out, but we did
Did you
because we
actually
just
have
knew it'd be so epic, you know.
did you have to get a permit for that shoot? You did?
They want us to. I went online and I drafted a fake one, but you know, that'll happen. Like, because they wanted insurance. And
Yeah.
so I went online and found like entertainment insurance document, and I just like posted, you know, on Photoshop, just posted over names and stuff and put our names in and gave it to them.
You're a
Because, you know,
You're a pirate.
well,
Yeah. Modern day
it
pirate.
had to get done, you know, I just where opportunity exists, you have to you know, meet it, right? So
You said about the desert. I was going to pull out an album here. A friend of mine, Danny Brown, who was in several bands, Armano being a big one, and then Fizz Fuzz is his most recent. He agrees with you. The desert just brings it out.
oh, it's crazy.
Is it the inspiration or just the sounds or what is
I think inspiration. I think there is just like again where I go back to the romanticism of it, where it's just like um the ability of life to overcome the drastic odds that exist within a desert style climate. I think there is just like some innate beauty to that, right? And then you've got these, you know, cactuses that somehow are flowering in 110-degree weather and all dryness, you know, without water in existence. And you're like, how is this, you know? But it's just like a reminder that like life will continue to go on and supersede all odds, you know? So there is kind of like an optimism, beautiful optimism to it. I don't know. It's kind of wild.
Yeah, I totally yes. Yeah, that makes sense to me now. That makes sense to me now because yeah, the song we're gonna go out with, Same Blood. Was that on a mountainside?
That was desert, and so that was in the Superstition Mountains. And so you got these really cool mountain area, dude. For this video, I found a range that I loved, like a mountain range that I loved. And so we pull up, and I've got my buddy that helps me film, Nick Burke. He's a great guy. And we literally have to track all of this gear up through this mountainside. So we're like trying to figure out the best terrain to go through. So we like walk it out at first, then we pack up all the gear, the keyboards, the guitars, all that kind of stuff, and like get up to this really cool outlook of this mountainside, all with it being, you know, 95 degrees. And so it was
Yeah.
it was quite an undertaking, but I think it turned out pretty darn cool. So
Yeah, it's stellar. It's better than I mean, yeah. Again, growing up in the MTV days, you know, you had all those stage things forced in a production, you know, in a terrible setting, and some of them really, really work, and some just really did not. Your approach is like more natural. You're not trying too hard at all, even though you had to try to get up there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
5 degrees, I'd be out right there. I like it a little cooler. But damn, I was impressed with that shoot. Then the song, the guitar, right there, I was hooked. Do you have a thing? Do you have a penchant for just like a song that builds as you go? Like I like a good who doesn't?
Yeah, that's been my big thing when listening to music. You know what I mean? Like I grew up on all sorts of. I was lucky enough, even while growing up. You know, I was
ask you that
90s.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, so 90s kid, and so the brilliance was it was BMG era. I don't remember if you remember this, where like you send in for and you get the 15 CDs, you know, for a cent, but you're really on the hook for like $30, whatever. You know, it's just crazy.
Here somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And so my brothers fell into that trap, and I got to reap the rewards because they would have CDs after CDs, and so I would have to sneak, and they would never let me borrow them. I would have to sneak in at different times a day when they weren't around and take a record at a time, you know, off the shelf and record it to tape. So I had one of those machines that had the CD, and then you record it to tape.
Of course.
And then I would be walking around with my Walkman, my tape Walkman, being able to listen to the CD for the first time. And so like Oasis, What's the Story, More and Glory was one of the first ones I did that to. Wow. Or then you had, you know, Nirvana, Nevermind being like one of them, and REM Monster, and like there's like more you could pick them out from the covers, but it's just like crazy. Growing up in that era, to me, just the amount of eclectic sounds that you ended up getting. You know what I mean? And a lot of them had that building nature
Yes.
to them and made them interesting to listen to, you know? And
Absolutely.
so that's a big thing for me. It's like if I'm getting bored while producing the song, then I just know other people are going to be bored listening to it, right? And so having that constant momentum, or like, okay, what's going to be the next thing that stands out or that builds up or adds more weight as this song progresses to make it feel like it's telling the full story, you know, is just really important to me.
Absolutely. You just said a mouthful right there. And you brought up Nevermind too, which is interesting because I'm a huge Nirvana fan. They hit when they needed to for me, which most people, I'm not going to say most, a lot of people my age are split down the middle with that one. Oh, it killed my heavy metal. It killed my rock. It killed our careers. If it did, that's everybody else's fault because quite frankly, it wasn't Nirvana's fault because Guns N' Roses and Metallica leveled that playing field, as far as I'm concerned, in the 80s way early.
Yeah.
Way early. And there's room for glam. There is room for all of it. For the producers to drop bands, that just sucks. You know, it sucks that it happened, but it had been they were on the fifth generation of, Pretty Boy Floyd. Enough, I no more
Yeah.
enough. They killed it themselves. It imploded. So enough of this Nirvana killed it. Nirvana can't help that they put out good music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And my whole theory on a lot of that too, it's just interesting because I get into, and I used to be this way, I think, and as I get older, that theories kind of morph, but you get in that conversation all the time with so many different musicians of just like, oh, and that killed it, or oh, that was a sellout, or oh, this blah blah blah. And you just go, the older that I'm getting too, I'm just going, dude, if you don't adapt, you don't survive.
True.
You know, and it's true in life and it's true in music even more so, where
Right.
it's like if you're not trying to create something new, something different, or if something does hit, it hit for a reason, and there was probably a lot of freaking talent behind that to
Correct.
make it hit. You know what I mean? It
Integrity.
wasn't just a happen chance,
Yep.
you
That's,
know.
I
And
mean,
there does, it needs to be the perfect storm where you need publicity, blah blah blah. But you know, at the end of the day, that music has to be there, right? And so like anybody that kind of, I love it when you get into it with certain musicians and oh, that just sucks and that's blah, blah. It's like, how can it suck if literally Nirvana no longer exists and they still get 30 million streams a month? How is that possible? You know what I mean?
yeah, you sound like me. You're scaring me a little bit. Yeah, even if you don't like it, if you don't like it, doesn't mean that it sucks. It just means that
Yeah.
other people really do like it. Somebody out there,
Yeah.
honestly, there's integrity there. Why did Judas Priest just play a show in North Carolina 2-3 months ago? Because they have this body of work, that people
Yeah.
want to hear. And every album's different. Rob Halford, God bless him, can adapt to a new audience. Why did what's her name? Was it Lindsay Hale? I forget. Somebody is fronting Skid Row or something like that. One of these young girls, probably I say young, probably
Oh, isn't there, well, isn't there a,
not
I
Lindsay.
thought Linkin Park, the one
Yeah,
that I saw was Linkin Park
Linkin
getting a new
Park, they have a
female
female singer now.
lead.
Well, there's this body of work people want to hear, and they're already putting
Yeah.
her down for doing it. It's
Yeah.
not my audience, it's not my fight, but
Yeah.
I say go for it. Hey, it adds a whole new element to those tunes. You
Yeah.
get
100%.
you get
And
to
if the band, and you got to trust the band, right? At the end of the day, it's like that band, you know, obviously without Chester, that's unfortunate,
yeah.
but uh you got to trust them because they were also part of the people that made that music. So if they think that that music can still be told or in a better way or in a different way, you got to trust them, or then also just resign yourself to, then you're not a fan. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
Instead of screaming it from the rooftops, you know, I don't know. That's
Right.
my
No, I hear you, man. That's it.
take.
Yeah, we see eye to eye on that one. And I'm always open to new music. And that's how I found you. And I will continue this quest until I'm gone. And that's all there
Hey,
is to that.
well,
Uh,
I'm very glad that you came across my stuff, and thank you so much for reaching out and invite to do this because this was awesome.
I do have to ask you too, and it's okay if you don't. Do you have a favorite horror movie? We cover horror on this network here. So do you have any, are you a horror movie? No.
Man, I actually, dude, I had a really strong horror time frame, you know, up until, I mean, I'll still throw on the occasional new horror movie that I think is gonna kill. But the scariest one to me, I would say, that like still throughout time, like if I'm ever hanging out with somebody and they're like, let's throw on a scary movie, I'm like, have you seen this movie? Because I think it's one of the scariest movies I've seen. Sinister.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, with Ethan Hawke. Dude,
very-
that movie, when I was watching that when I'm down in my parents' basement. I think it was like high school or, around that time. I'm in my parents' basement. We have woods in the background. It's
Oh,
all
man.
dark in the basement. And that time that he's holding that photograph
Oh, yeah.
and in front of the window and he goes down and the dude's in the back
Yeah.
right there, that jump scare was huge. And then the lawnmower scene where you've got the POV and the lawnmower, and then all of a sudden a person's face just shows up as the lawnmower's going. Bro, that movie had me scared for days.
I own the Blu-ray. I do. I love that
Yeah.
movie. I even
No,
like.
I'm a huge fan of that one.
I
What
like.
about you? What about you? You
Uh,
always ask people what their favorite
yeah.
is. What is your favorite?
You know what's funny? I just saw Alien Romulus, and I took everything I had to go see that. My wife said, I'm gonna take you. Let's go." I'm like, "All right, I'll go." And I always go back to the first Alien. That I don't.
Okay.
They raised that bar, and I don't think they can ever get over that hump. The Thing, John Carpenter. Um,
Okay.
Amazing. The original Halloween, you could say, for the scares and just cinematography alone. Jaws, visceral, and Evil Dead. I'll always go to that. Yeah, the Invasion
What
of
do you
the
think?
Body
What did you
Snatchers.
think of that new? What do you think of that new Evil Dead that came out maybe a year ago?
Oddly enough, that's the guy that did Fede Alvarez. He did Alien Romulus, which I just saw, which was excellent.
It was
I
good.
Yes, and Evil Dead, he did that, and that was scary, genuinely scary, and I think it did it justice. I didn't need it, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. But the original, is an original for a reason.
Is
But
it 100%?
they did well. But Alien
Okay.
Romulus did well on that too. The original scares are there, and he could build suspense. That's what's missing.
Okay.
And I like that. I like it in my
Interesting.
music too. And you did it when you picked up that microphone, started walking, and I didn't know what was coming. Like, oh, what? And then bam, this wall of sound. And I'm like, oh, cool. So you're good at it too. But yeah, we always,
Awesome. Well,
I didn't ask you though what you're currently listening to. Are you listening to anything at this time?
man, yeah, I'm all over the place. It depends. I'll go through like phases, right? Where I'll be in like 2 to 3 months of a certain either style or set of artists. So I'm coming out of a little bit, I don't know how your audience will react to this, but like Noah Kahan, Zach Bryan phase. So kind of that more like folk alt country kind of style. The songwriting there to me is pretty interesting. Some of the vocal melodies and stuff is kind of interesting. So I've just been like into that. I'm coming out of that a little bit. I've been listening to a lot of classical recently. I don't know if Max Richter. I don't know if you know that name. He does a lot of soundtrack. He did the soundtrack to like The Leftovers,
Okay.
and some other stuff. And so like that's just been like a really kind of interesting area I've been in where it's just like you get a lot of different influential melodic ideas, I feel like, listening to classical.
Oh yeah. A
At
lot of people would
times.
agree with you there. Yeah.
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 And so I'm just kind of stuck in that mode right now. But I mean, like I get my phases where I love going back through the Beatles and all that kind of stuff, or I'll have my heavy metal time as well. So it's just I'm all over the place. So, but I kind of did get it in patches. I don't know. It's very strange. I just have 2 or 3 months where I'm just like, this is what I want to hear. You know what I mean? And then I'll get sick of it and be like, I don't want to hear this anymore, and
Yeah.
go on to kind of a different.
Oh, don't worry,
So.
I'm there too. I mean, I never want to hear Enter Sandman again. And I'm okay with the jungle going away. I'm okay with that too. I'm more of a deep track guy when it comes to both those bands these days. I just started listening to Garage Days Revisited with Metallica because the Small Hours is like one of my favorite tunes. But yeah, I'll revisit stuff, but I like to go dive on the bands I used to listen to, things I missed. I've been picking up
100%.
things I missed. Yeah,
That is the cool part too, is you hear songs from certain bands and you're like, this is them? Like what? How did I not come across this? You know what I mean? And it totally has like a much more profound sound. It's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. I've been doing that with Soul Asylum of all bands because I never had their catalog.
Hey, Minneapolis, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're from Minneapolis.
That's I should know that. We just saw them like last summer. They were out here and they did a hell of a show. 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I served him some drinks a couple of times. He's a nice dude.
Dave.
Dave.
He's down to earth.
Runaway Train, dude. That song is great.
I'm all about April Fool. That is my favorite song.
Okay.
And they closed with it.
Okay.
And he was their sound guy. He was up on the stage. We thought, oh, they're getting an opening act together. No, it's Dave Perner up there, just kind of putting things together, talking to the audience. Like, that sounds like shit. And he's like yelling at the crowd and being funny, and he's setting his own stage up, which I found that's who he is. That's who he is.
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly endearing. That's awesome.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let you go here. But when we're gonna go out with Same Blood, right? We decided.
Awesome.
And what do you have a favorite band or a couple of bands?
Man, that's tough.
We
I
could
would
say
say
that for the next time, but go ahead.
Yeah, we can always say that for next time. I mean, in terms of like influential bands, I would say that like a lot of things for me were built off of. I would say it's got to start with the Beatles, love or hate it. I think that's a really polarizing statement, but like I grew up, the first CD I ever bought, we had a local record shop chain called Down in the Valley, and what went in there and got A Hard Day's Night by the Beatles. And I listened to that thing to the point that like the CD was so scratched it wouldn't even play anymore. So like that was kind of the first introduction to me of just like, man, this is so cool. So that's a starting point. And then I would say, honestly, that Nirvana Nevermind that we had kind of brought up. Then I would say Kings of Leon for me was a big defining band right around the time that I was starting to write more kind of band style music.
Yeah.
And so like that was a big one for me. And then Arctic Monkeys has just been one of those that like continues to hang around.
Okay.
And they're an interesting evolutionary band to me where it's like I heard them, I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, right? It was like my first introduction to them. And it's been and I loved them for that. And then My Favorite Worst Nightmare was like one of my favorite records still to this day. I have few records on vinyl. That's one of them. It's just like it's like really rad to me. And then their progression has been really interesting too. I don't know if I necessarily love it, but I'm interested by it, that like a band that starts so much as like this rock club
right
indie act is now doing the interesting direction that they've taken. I don't know, I just think it's
I'm glad. See, I like asking artists these things because it gives me leads. I have not checked out their latest, and they had a huge hiatus, right? The Arctic Monkeys.
Yeah.
And they came back. The new one, I literally may have heard a snippet of the first release. Is it worth digging into that new one?
I think I don't know. I'm mixed on it because to me, if they would have sealed up like their first 3 records in a vault and just had that been them, I think I would have been really okay with that. I'm kind of here for it just because I am such a big fan of the previous stuff, I guess, is how I would put it. But it's much more so of I just like the guys, so I might continue to listen to some of the newer stuff. It's not necessarily I think this is very inspirational stuff to listen to, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
No, it totally does. Yeah. I listen to stuff like Godflesh when I'm writing because it's dark, it's deep, and it's emotional. It pulls out the feels. So I totally understand. What is this now? We're gonna play Same Blood. What is this song about that we're gonna go out with? Where'd it come?
Man, this one's kind of is kind of a little loaded. I mean,
that was a loaded question.
No, well, just the topic for this one is kind of maybe more on the darker side where at least the first originated where a girl I was seeing at the time, it kind of told me a story about her growing up and potentially some parental neglect and stuff. It came from a really negative place, and for me it was like I'm sure you felt this way before too, where it's like you feel very when you hear like stories of people that you care about, you feel very protective, right, of them kind of style. And so that was like, it was a kind of neglect from her dad ultimately, and then it led me down this train of if I were to ever kind of see him or have a conversation with him, what that would be like, where I would be very protective of her. And so some of the lines a lot, go and tell it how you'd like to, but don't go tell someone like me, because she don't like it any more than me, when you're the same blood kind of thing. And so like how many times the example continues of especially, you know, male to female relationships of negative treatment, and kind of finding other guys to corroborate the story, or to be like, you know, hey, it's fine kind of thing. And more so of like holding accountability for that. So
We're an
I don't
advocate.
know, kind of a deeper one to end on, but I mean, that's kind of how that song kind of started at a story, and then kind of built into kind of a bigger feeling of my sentiments on that whole situation.
Unfortunately, I like to dig into those dark emotions a lot, and kind of felt that way about it. But hey, listen, Case Vannon, I appreciate you doing this. I hope to have you back when you're rich and famous. Maybe if you're in town, get to meet you and stuff. We'll figure that out. You have any shirts printed yet?
I do. Yeah. So
Really?
please, you know, if anybody's listening, they're like, hey, I love this stuff, casebannon.com. Head over to the store there. Got plenty of merch available. Again, the pre-sale is going to be dropping pretty soon here as well. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been awesome. Really appreciate you reaching out. So glad that you came across my music, and hopefully, you know, a couple more people will, you know, as well.
That's one thing I'm good at. And
I appreciate you spreading the word.
Hell yeah, man. And folks, I was gonna tell them anywhere else you want them to go to find you. Are you a Bandcamp guy or no?
Basically, yeah, I do have Bandcamp, but I mean, through, yeah, you can check out Bandcamp. I think it's casebannon.com, or casebannon.bandcamp.com or something,
You know, if you
along
prefer
those lines.
somewhere else.
Yeah, I think ultimately probably via my distribution, because I think Bandcamp still takes their little cut of everything. I mean, as much as you can kind of have it all be in house, I think is a nice thing along the lines of our independent,
I totally
you
agree.
know,
Yeah.
discussion. But again, should be super easy to find, honestly, if you just, you know, throw it in Google. A lot of that stuff should come up. So,
And anywhere that they want you to communicate with you, is there a particular medium that you prefer?
yeah, you could do case.vannon@gmail.com is super easy. Otherwise, you know, all the contact details are on the site and everything too.
Excellent.
So,
all right, guys, folks, friends, and fiends, is Spotify for all of us, and iHeartRadio, and all the episodes are there. And if you go to Fairly Dark Productions, you can get that, as well as some comic books. There's some horror there, Celebration of Spirits for the independent artists. Check that out. You can check Jess Weary's music out there as well. And my books are out there. If you like horror, Dead Memories is the new one, and the story of, well, I have a very personal story in that one. That's a true one. But hey, thank you so much for your time, Case Vannon, and we'll talk again. Maybe after, I don't know. When do you think this new year you're gonna have
yeah, well, hopefully, maybe when I figure out some dates to try to get out to that East Coast or something, that would be kind of fun.
Absolutely.
Trying to plug that.
All right. Well, I hope to see you. We'll talk sooner than that. So, but yeah. All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in.